Imagine a time where death lurked in every shadow. A time where a mere sneeze could signal the end of your life. A time where death was all around you. Now also picture yourself being backstabbed and betrayed by your dearest friends as they try to come for everything you've built throughout the years. Welcome to Prequelle, the fourth full-length album by the Swedish masked band Ghost. This is an album that takes us on a journey through the morbid realities of the Black Death and the human psyche response to it. This record plays with the idea of mortality before ending on the question, if you could circumvent death, would you? Throughout this video, we'll be trying to answer this question by analyzing the stories and inspirations behind each song. Let's take a look behind these lyrics. Prequelle opens up with Ashes, a short, eerie introductory piece sung by a little girl. The song interpolates the nursery rhyme Ring a Ring o' Roses that people have associated with the Great Plague of England that happened in 1665. Scholars of the 20th century connected the sneezing of the rhyme to the symptoms of the plague, as well as posies, which were herbs that were carried as protection and to ward off the smell of the disease. They also say that the ashes allude to the cremation of bodies, the burning of houses, or the blackening of the victim's skin during this period. However, modern scholars regard the Great Plague explanation for the rhyme to be baseless, yet it still sets a scene for Ghost's album. We're in medieval Europe, in a world of death, sickness, and darkness. With this, the record properly starts with Rats, a song that alludes to one of the most prevalent images of the bubonic plague, the rodents that were thought to cause the disease. This lymphatic system infection resulted from the bite of an infected flea that was often carried by these rodents that roamed the dirty black passageways of medieval overpopulated cities. Through these lyrics, Ghost conveys the idea of a societal convergence of beliefs, employing the bubonic plague as a symbol for the pervasive spread of fate.
In times of turmoil, in times like these, beliefs contagious, spreading disease.
Tobias Forge told Revolver magazine that most people back in the Middle Ages knew very little, so all of it was God or the devil, and about their faith being questioned. Why are we being stricken down by this great scourge? It must be because we're not fearing God enough, and all that superstitious bullshit. This all leads us to a more religious view of the plague era through the song Faith, where an omnipresent being, which could be God or the devil, watches masses fall. Through these verses, we get harsh critiques on religion, as well as different references from historic events of medieval Europe and England. On the first verse, we get a reference to witch hunters, such as Matthew Hopkins. These individuals would enter counties, accuse community members of witchcraft, and then seek payment for their services after the accused were tried and tortured.
There is a scourge in the guise of sanctity, a perpetrator with a quill. Oh, it's often steeped in well-spun mystery. The accuser sends a bill.
The second verse references Luddites, 19th century workers who resisted industrialization by reckoning machinery. This term probably implies its negative modern meaning, someone against new technology. In medieval times, the Catholic Church often opposed new ideas, deeming them threats to religious authority or contrary to divine will. The verse also references the lack of hygiene of these population centers, where the streets were drowning deep in fecal matter, eventually spreading more infection and death.
The light shone the diabolical, a fickle trail across the land. Oh, it stains, feels, and looks identical. A
Then, as a piano and synth-driven power ballad, See the Light melds gentle worship elements with Holy Communion metaphors involving decayed flesh. The song starts slowly, telling the story of a man, or perhaps the embodiment of death, who persistently encounters sin. It then bursts into the pre-chorus, detailing the devil's rising power through hate and mockingly playing with Christian ritual allusions.
Every day that you feed me with hate, I grow stronger. Drink me, eat me, then you'll see the light.
But before we continue with the rest of the album and the stories behind each song, I'd like to discuss some parallel allusions that can be seen throughout the album. Since the band's inception in Sweden in 2006 as a masked theater band, the names and identities of all band members were unknown. However, in 2016, the band members sued lead singer Tobias Forge, claiming that through all the years they have been on tour with Ghost and throughout the band's album recordings, they have neither been allowed to share in the profits of the band, nor have they seen any of the incomes accounted for. Tobias has attempted to make them sign an agreement that implies that they are merely consultants working for his company, an agreement also stating that they will receive less than a minimal wage for their contributions to the band. According to this proposal, furthermore, they would renounce to any and all rights to musical royalties. All above despite the fact that some of them have been members of the band since its foundation, investing all of their time in the band during the past 5 years, with as much right to the recordings and trademark of the band Ghost as that of Tobias Forge. Their vocalist and former friend is now attempting to, in an unheard and shameless way, transform Ghost from a band into a solo project with hired musicians. However, after a 6-day trial in Sweden, the court ruled in favor of Forge, forcing the ex-Ghost musicians to pay the frontman's legal fees. All of this shines a new light on several phrases we've overlooked in the first pass of this album, as some of these lyrics could be hits directed to the previous nameless ghouls. The chorus from See the Light, which we have already analyzed, could directly reference Forge's triumph over his ex-bandmates. And additionally, in the verses, he might be directly talking to them.
Many a sin I have witnessed, and in many indeed I have been. Many a rat I befriended, and so many a thorn stood between. But of all of the demons I've known, none could compare to you.
Forge told an ME that this song can apply to any situation in which you're surrounded by enemies. Really, it's a song about redistributing anger and negativity. Now we get to our first instrumental song on the album, and though one might think that one can't find any connections to the Black Death from an instrumental song, we do so thanks to its title. The Miasma theory, a now abandoned medical theory, stated that diseases like the bubonic plague were caused by bad air or poisonous vapors, believed to spread through contaminated environments. I'd like to note that the plague doctor mask we've all come to know is somewhat related to the Miasma theory. Plague doctors wore those masks with long, beak-like noses filled with aromatic substances to filter out what they believed were the disease-causing miasmas, or simply the harsh smell of the decaying organic matter. But plague doctors aside, after a powerful sax solo, we get to a disco-inspired arena rock anthem called Danse Macabre. Forge told Revolver magazine that Europe was in this turmoil in the 1340s. The plague is extremely fast. It starts off as the worst flu you've ever had, and then it goes worse and then you're dead in 3 days. So people were just lying in the streets. Corpses and all the surroundings were falling apart. All the brothels and pubs were thriving because people started partying like literally there was no tomorrow, because they were gonna die. They were just going for it. Danse Macabre is capturing this joyous nocturnal sort of life in a disco song.
So I just wanna be with you in the moonlight. Just wanna be, I wanna be with you all night.
I'd also like to note that the song's title references the classical piece Danse Macabre by French composer Camille Saint-Saëns. Then we hop into Memoria, a piano-driven song about not fearing death, as it's an imminent certainty for us mortals. Throughout the track, the band references memento mori, an artistic or symbolic trope acting as a reminder of the inevitability of death. Though the lyrics are pretty straightforward, telling the listener how Lucifer accompanies all to our death, we also get some clever lines referencing the origins of the bubonic plague.
Navigate all alone on this tempestuous sea, to ride with me, to ride with me.
Forge said in an interview, it was how the plague started in Europe. It was basically a couple of merchant ships that had been over in Crimea. A few of them sailed into a port in Messina in Sicily, and according to the legend, from the ship came the rats that were carrying the fleas that had the bubonic plague. Almost everyone on the ship was dead or dying. Then, we also get a reference to Saint Peter, the first pope of the Roman Catholic Church.
Had you had the chance today, you could have sold out too. Ain't that right, sweet Saint Peter?
Peter is famous for denying association with Jesus before his crucifixion. So here, Ghost reminds us that even the most devoted disciples and followers can turn their back when facing death. And yet again, the fact that Ghost mentions sweet Saint Peter might be a reference to his ex-bandmates who sued him and with whom he worked since the band's inception in Linköping, Sweden. Then, continuing in the theme of death, on which image the singer personifies death and narrates the song from the eyes of the Grim Reaper. As with other songs talking about the Black Death, in this lyrics we get more biblical references, like the mention of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Mentions of a pale white horse riding in the shadows in the second verse can relate to an interpretation of Revelation 6:7-8, where the first horseman of the apocalypse is called pestilence and is associated with infectious disease and plagues.
I am riding in the shadows behind you on a pale white horse.
The song also references the Garden of Earthly Delights in the chorus, a 3-part oil painting to which the original artistic intentions are unknown. However, historians believe that the panel represents moral warning or a panorama of a paradise lost. Approaching the end of the album, we get another instrumental track, that its title translates from Swedish to the Windows of Hell. This references medieval dresses or overcoats women used to wear with wide side openings. They were deemed windows to hell because sinful men could look through those large openings and get a glimpse of the woman's breasts, therefore seeing their damnation as sinners. Then, in the final song of the album, Ghost makes the listener reflect on whether immortality is desired. Forge said as a hypothetical, let's say that you were given the opportunity to circumvent the natural order of things, given carte blanche to live forever. Would you want to do that? Is that something that you'd be willing to commit to?
Can you hear me say your name forever? Can you see me longing for you forever, forever? Would you let me touch?
This song delves into profound themes, contemplating the possibility of eternality. Can something truly last forever? Will marriage or friendship stand the test of time? But the album ends here, letting us know that nothing is eternal, and one should enjoy everything before death comes for us all.
If you had life eternal.
As far as the name of the album, Forge told HMV that finding an album title has always been difficult for him. He was toying around with using an English word when he landed on Prequelle, which is a variant spelling of the word Prequelle, most likely referencing a previous time, such as the medieval era this album is set in. As far as the artwork, it was designed by
Zbigniew Bielak,
who has designed many more Ghost covers and art. It takes inspiration from Brazilian's death and thrash metal band Sepultura's EP Bestial Devastation, an album Forge is really fond of, even having a tattoo of the artwork in his arm. But having a closer look into the art piece, we see the Cardinal Copia, sitting on a throne that is fused to a 3-headed beast. This beast is most likely Satan as described by Dante in Inferno, the first part of his narrative poem, The Divine Comedy. Dante depicts Satan in a horrifying manner. He's found in the deepest parts of hell, in the ninth circle, which is reserved for traitors, which might be yet another hit at his ex-bandmates, who betrayed and sued Forge. Dante describes Satan, or Lucifer, as a giant, terrifying figure with 3 faces. He has enormous bat-like wings, and in his 3 mouths, Satan eternally chews on the greatest traitors in Dante's view: Judas, who betrayed Jesus, Brutus, who betrayed Julius Caesar, and Cassius, who also betrayed Caesar. Throughout the artwork, we can also find more references to Catholic imagery, such as the hill with the 3 crosses where Jesus was crucified. We can also see Cardinal Copia, holding the number 666, the number of the beast, as well as the Grim Reaper, who we've heard about constantly throughout the album. And finally, we can see chariots carrying dead bodies, such as how they transported the hundreds of thousands of people who perished in medieval times due to the Black Death. As we come to the end of our journey through Prequelle, it's clear that Ghost has crafted an album rich in historical context and profound questions about mortality. Each track weaves a story that invites us to ponder on our own existence and the ever-present shadow of death. We can also see how Ghost manages to weave critiques on the Catholic Church, as well as referencing the disputes Tobias Forge went through with his ex-bandmates. So with all that being said, I'd like to thank you all for coming with me on this analysis of Prequelle. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to like and subscribe. I really enjoyed bringing the stories to life and showing what's going on behind the minds of the artists when writing these songs. I'll leave you with another one of my videos as well as my original music, which you can listen to here on YouTube or any streaming platform. It would be great if you could check it out. So thank you so much and see you guys on the next video.